Hey, what's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in today's video. One thing I've been asked about a lot recently is how to paint light, like actual direct light, from the sun, from a lamp, from a candle, from a car's taillights, whatever it is. And I will demonstrate how to paint this candle in two hands holding it. The main takeaway here is the way you paint light is by painting the shadow around it. And that's what I want you to always have in mind. The light stands out because of the shadows around it. And this painting is far from perfect. It's actually my second attempt. It's a bit of a challenging scene, but I'm quite happy with it. If you take a few steps back, it looks a little more accurate. But there's a lot of nuance that goes into that, and you will see with the process a lot of stages that I tried layering in an effective way so that it becomes more accessible to more people. The process itself is built in a way that will allow more people to be able to follow it. So I do encourage you, I will put the scans again, I'll mention it again later, a high quality scan of the sketch stage. I do encourage you to print it out and maybe redraw it and paint along with me. And again, that flame is only indicated by the darks around it. So let's get to it. So here's what my sketch looks like, and the sketch is actually quite important here. So I did include, you will find a link in the description box for the high quality sketch of this, scan of this sketch, so you can recreate it, pause the video now, recreate it, and then paint alongside me. Now the important part here is defining the shapes of light and shadow. And the way you paint this flame is by painting all the shadows around it. That's how you paint direct light, no matter if it's a candle, it's a lamp, it's a tail light of a car, whatever it is, you paint the light by painting the shadow around it. That's the most common, at least, way of doing it in watercolor. You can cover everything up with dark and then put in opaque paint, but the more straightforward way, and I think the way that watercolor kind of lends itself naturally to, is this way. So here's what we're gonna do. Now, I'm gonna cover everything up that isn't the very strong highlights, and I can actually mark these for you and we can maybe later erase them, but let me show you. It's this part here, it's this section, that's a very light section of the painting, and you can leave maybe a few strong highlights on the fingers around these areas, okay, because they are quite affected by the candlelight and you can see it on the skin. Now I'm gonna cover everything but these areas. So let's get started. Flat wash. I'm gonna work black and white. The reason for that is all I care about in this kind of a painting is the value, and I want to isolate that because the sense of light comes from getting the dark values around it. And let me know if you would like me to do something that's in color for this same scene. I can definitely do that, but for now, to make it a little easier, I do want to focus on solely the value. Okay, so I'm gonna cover everything up but that flame here. Okay, and I'm using a fairly light wash for a couple of reasons. One is that it has better flow, so it's going to be easier to control. Second is I want to see my pencil lines a little better in the next stage, which is a lesson I learned from the first attempt. I just couldn't see them very well. And second, look at the candle. The body of the candle is actually quite light, and I want to make sure I don't go too dark there. Okay, it's actually really light, and I can just treat this as kind of a high-key painting in a way. So and everything gets easier the wetter the wash is. So blending becomes a little easier. All of these different things you do in watercolor just become a little easier. You have more room to breathe. It's just a better way of approaching it. So I'm gonna try and blend this line. If I'm failing miserably, I don't know why. I'm gonna get some more water and do this. Okay. Just want to get a blend, a gradual transition there. Let me use some paper here to pick it up, because this needs to be fairly light. This process is really challenging me. I had it from the first attempt all the way up to now. I'm being challenged by it, but that's fine. Also doing this real time is a bit more of a challenge. So narrating it real time, but I prefer real time, because I know a lot of people gain a little more of it to really hear my thoughts. Narration is kind of, it distances you a bit more from the process, you the viewer, I mean. You get to experience it, but some parts of it are just not there because, again, I kind of explain after the fact with the hindsight, benefit of hindsight, and So it's not exactly the same, and I'd much rather do, if I could, most of my videos like this real time. It just takes longer and it's more challenging, and makes the videos longer too, by the way. But in any case, this is gonna be our first wash. Maybe a bit of a surprise, maybe not what you were expecting, but I think that'll be the best way to approach this kind of a subject. Hopefully, ideally, the candle will stay the exact same, all of the candle. The only thing that's gonna change is everything around it, okay? So what we're gonna do I want to try and maybe just get this kind of a thing here. I'm gonna drop a bit of water there, that's fine. That's actually gonna be okay. What else do I want to cover in this stage? I think that's fine. Hopefully that won't be too noticeable. We're gonna let it dry, and then I'm gonna come back and really establish some of the shapes. So everything is dry now, and this is where we have a decision to make of how we're gonna push this process forward. So one thing we can do is start darkening the hands, because the hands are darker than the candle, and you can really tell the difference if you look at the reference photo. But for me, I think what I'm gonna do next is actually put in the super dark background, okay? Now, the way I'm gonna do this is to just paint everything around the hands, actually fill it up. It's gonna be a fairly simple process of just filling up all of the surrounding area. We do have one area that's a little tricky, and that is the flame. So the flame casts out this kind of a light, very light circle of what do you call it? I forgot the name of this light, a radiated light. So I believe it's radiated light. Sorry about that. It's been a while since I looked at the terminology, and honestly, it doesn't matter as much, the terminology itself. But this light right here radiates from the flame, and it should stay as light as it is at the moment. So what I'm gonna do, let me show you, and hopefully it'll work. It's not the easiest thing to do. I'm gonna wet, or pre-wet rather, all of this area right here, okay? And you can see it goes a little darker, so you can tell where I did it around the flame. And then what I'll do is begin my dark wash. Let me show you, like this. And what I'm hoping to happen, I'm hoping for this kind of a safe distance to be kept around the flame, you see? So sorry, I had to take a phone call, but I finished it up real fast because I didn't want this to dry. So what we hope now is that this safe distance is kept with the super dark wash and the flame, okay? And I'm actually okay with it kind of closing in a little more. In fact, I'm gonna encourage it like this, but then I'll try and let it go and see what the paint kind of does, okay? So we'll let it go for now. And hopefully that'll work out. Now this is the edge of the hand here, and it kind of goes into a shadowy area. Now again, I'm only painting the black color here. I'm not painting the mid to dark values that are visible on the hands. Okay, we will get to those later on. But let me switch over to a larger brush, and we're gonna cover everything up that is like black, okay? Like this. And you have to really push it to be dark, okay? Now I actually like the fact that I got a bit of a gradual transition there. I'm gonna keep it. I don't know why it happened, probably because of the wetness of the brush and how the water and paint are kind of dispersed in it. Sometimes you'll get a lucky break like this. What you want to have in mind for these washes that I know a lot of people are scared of, these super dark washes, is yes, the paint flows less, but you won't see as much of the streakiness thanks to how dark it is. So even if you get a few streaks in there, it's not perfect, you can see some of the brush marks, it's not going to be as visible. So that's kind of the trade-off there. Yes, it is a little harder to control, and it feels more like you'd paint with acrylics or something like that, but it actually can work in your favor, okay? So here we go, around the fingers, and if you're having a hard time seeing my pencil lines, I mean, you will be able to see yours better. It's just because of the camera, and make sure to draw them strong enough, because they will, oops, messed up this shape a bit, that's fine. They will disappear on you. Now, as I'm painting around the fingers, I'm thinking to myself, do I want to bring out a soft edge somewhere? And to be honest with you, not so far. I didn't see a place where I'd want to do that. I do have this slightly looser edge. But other than that, I think I'm fine. Maybe here. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, so this connects to here. And again, as I told you, it is a little harder to get flow. You won't get flow essentially. But the plus is that it's not going to be as visible. So I was able to connect this corner pretty easily. And let's go around this section here. Look at it and see if something requires darkening. You can go over it again. It's very thick paint, so you won't get cauliflowers. That's, again, another positive side to this. And then, so what I see is that I have a very strong shadow on this side of the hand. So why not already at this stage connect it with the background? Okay, so let's see how this is going to play out, just to maybe make the impression a little easier on the viewer's eyes. Okay, so I'm going to do this. This is entirely in the shadow. And then I can kind of go here with some clean water and help it move. And I'm going to tilt the paper a bit and just help it move a little to the left. And we'll get some cauliflowers possibly, but nothing too bad. So you see I essentially connected these two areas. Now let's darken this a bit more, and you get a bit of an easier transition here from light to dark. Not necessary, you don't have to do this, but that's fine. So we actually finished mapping out the very dark shadows around the hands. Now let me do this. Let me start indicating the shadows inside the hands, okay? So here's how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna fill in the black area here. See how it's actually black? And I'm thinking about this shadow as one shape, the shadow here. So I'm gonna connect this dark shape of the shadow with the slightly lighter area of the shadow, just by adding a bit of water there and making the wash again a little lighter. And that's how you simplify things to the viewer. You don't have to connect all of the washes and everything in the painting, but if you can find a few of these connection points, it can go a long way. So you see I'm kind of rendering it out. And remember that once you paint over an existing wash, you will have a bit of a harder time controlling the technique, a bit of a harder time blending. So if I'll go like this again, try to blend, it's not going to be as perfect as on the actual paper. Let's fill in this part where I touched with my finger accidentally. So we have this shadow right here, and we can connect it already to this area. Now I did kind of make a mistake because I wanted to darken the hands. Maybe I should pause now. I wanted to darken the entire hands to separate them from the candle. I'm gonna get some of the creases wet and wet to make them really darker than the candle, but maybe that's not that important. Let me try it out while I'm at it. So let's go like this. Let's go a little darker here, but still with quite a watery wash. And maybe even go more watery here because it goes lighter. And kind of make that separation with the candle, but still not darken the whole thing up. Maybe that's kind of how we can win of both ends in a way. So it goes like this. And I'm quite happy with that. So let's let this section go for now. And yes, it looks strange because I haven't shaded the fingers yet, so don't worry about that. As for this side, it's, again, slightly darker than the candle. Let me go ahead and try and get that effect in. And I told them to call in 10 minutes. Hopefully I'll finish this wash by now, but sorry in advance. I have a delivery coming and I need to make sure that I get it. So slightly darker than the candle. Very slightly, ever so slightly darker. And then you can kind of pull into cleaner water. The problem is I don't have too much clean water here. Maybe I'll refill it in a moment. And I can spray it to help it move a bit, or to kind of blend in. But then I can actually connect it directly to the shadow underneath. Start quite light, like this, and slowly, gradually push it to be a little darker, all the way to something that's closer to actual black color. Let's get this here. like this. Get this crease on the hand, hopefully that'll show well. And as we're already there, we'll connect it to the shadow on the candle, like this. Too much water on the brush, hurts my control, so I got rid of it. Going all the way around the fingers and all the way to the bottom here, like this. Clean the brush and kind of help that move a bit, blend a bit. Like that. And we're kind of done with the maybe shadows inside there. There is a very clear lighter shadow there on the edge of the thumb, which we will help move a bit with some clean water. Like this, which we can connect then to this here. So again, you really have to observe the reference and find those connections. They're not gonna tell you connect here, connect there. It's not always as obvious, and sometimes it's just a matter of your own choice. So I'm gonna let it dry for a few moments, replace the water, and then I'll start working on the shadows on the fingers. So on to the next wash we go, and this one's going to be fairly important because you see the light from the candle going to the bottom will really influence the fingers, and that's where we will really feel the light and shadow. So I'm going to just work on the fingers from left to right. Hopefully I'll get it right. It's not the easiest step, but try and follow me and we'll see how we can do here. So first off, we have this shadow on the finger. Now remember, these dark shadows are dark, but they're lighter than our background, okay? And it's gonna be easy to mix that because for the background I really squeezed out like the darkest color I could. So as long as it's even a little bit watery, it's gonna end up being lighter. Now the whole idea of how you get the right value, which is something I should have talked a bit about before, but I have talked, in this video before, but I have talked about it, and of course in many other videos. It is a muscle you learn to train of seeing the color as its final version, because as you know, probably, watercolor will dry much lighter than they appear to be when you first lay them on paper. Because of the wetness, they look so much. I'm gonna lift back a bit of a hint for the nail there. There's a bit of a lighter section there. So they're gonna dry much lighter, and what you want to do is learn how to account for that. Not always easy, but with experience it will get much, much easier, trust me. Now notice how it goes a little lighter the more we move to the right. And this, for example, this change of direction in the skin really catches the light and creates this mini highlight that I will try and get in, see, for the nail. That's really nice looking. Now I'm gonna add a bit more water to the mix and gradually lighten it up even more. And so we have this, we have the shadow here, and one thing I really forgot, I'm gonna leave this small highlight there. One thing I really forgot is to blend the top part of that finger. Really important to show its shape. The smooth transition indicates that we have a rounded plane. The fingers are round, so we want to convey that. Then we have this finger here that's pretty much lighter than the rest, so I'm gonna do this kind of a thing, help the paint move together, and you see how gradually we build things up around that flame. And the flame is the, the focal point, or the thing here that we wanted to achieve, the sense of light, and that's how you do it. You do it by painting the shadows around it. It can be tricky, it's not the easiest thing to do. I'm gonna try and render some kind of a shadow there, but it's fairly light here. We barely need anything. So I'm gonna go like this behind that finger. For the next one, we're gonna go a little lighter around here, around the shape of the highlight of the next finger, or not highlight, but a lighter section. Okay, make sure you preserve that. A bit of a part of the finger catching the light. But this is fairly light here, so a bit more water and kind of help the paint move downwards. Okay. The more important thing than getting every detail in the fingers is to get them as a whole to look together, because for my previous attempt, that maybe I'll show you later, I didn't managed to do that, and what this caused is the fingers looked very fragmented, and sometimes clarity is more important than accuracy. And I actually think that's an important lesson. I'll write it down because it is pretty important. You want to make sure that what you're drawing is clear, and it has that clear message to it, and that can be even more important than getting it accurately. So when I tried getting every small detail on the finger accurately, I ended up messing up the overall impression and having it not be clear enough, and that really hurt the painting. And then I'm going to work my way around this finger with a bit of a lighter section there, but you see how it starts to feel like kind of a light and shadow. This is already dry, otherwise I would have gone back and added some wet and wets. I can actually do that maybe with the other fingers here, maybe just a small touch here, small touch there on the nail, a few small touches right around here. This is a little too dark, so let me lift back like that here, and then onto the next finger. So it's gonna come from here. Not an easy shape to draw. Again, the fingers, sausage-like shape, not the easiest to draw, but challenge yourself and go for those tough shapes too. You will learn a lot from it. I learned a lot from my previous attempt. And here I'm just going to add water because this is much lighter. So I'm going to go like this. And you see I'm trying to be minimal with my brush marks. I'm not trying to put in each and every shape I see with the brush. Don't be a perfectionist with the brush. That leads to a lot of problems. It's one of the things I noticed most with my students. Trying to get each and every shape down, and then you really end up overworking what you're doing. You really end up destroying the flow and so many good things about it. I'm just gonna darken this entire shadow here. You end up destroying all the flow and all the good things about your work just because you had to get this kind of a shape to be exactly accurate. No, it's just not as important. If this reaches here or a little more further in, this is where kind of forgiving minor mistakes can actually go a long way in making your work look better, because you better see the overall picture. Okay, now let me darken just a bit of this side of this finger. And again, not perfect. I didn't do a perfect job here at all with the fingers, but hopefully it's decent enough so you can tell their shapes. Now we will go back again here especially and kind of darken these sections. They are dry enough so I can afford it. Especially for the fingers that are more towards the edge. Now what I have to make sure is that, again, I don't end up overworking or kind of destroying the simplicity that was there. So I'm going to be very careful with this stage, very, very careful. So that's darker a little better. Let's darken this part of the nail here, alongside the edge of the shadow is a little darker, kind of like this. And then for the rest of it, it's more about just a few details here and there. And once again, do a spritz here just to help this section move a bit and blend together. This finger is super light, but there is a bit of a gentle shadow there, so why not get that in? Like this. I just picked back some of it. It was too strong, I think. And what else? Okay, so this should be darker. Let me show you. This shadow right here should be significantly darker. Now I'm going to use some water again to move it around like this. And I'm going to use some more water just to make sure I don't get any weird edges there. We have a similar thing going on the right side, so you really want to get that in as well. Like this, like that, which further brings out the shapes of the fingers, which aren't perfect, but they are nice looking, I think. And actually, let me do something interesting here. I'm gonna pre-wet this section and then just pour very little paint to it, because I do feel like there's a bit of a darker section there. Now let's see. So the fingers are clear enough in my opinion. They could be better. It's just such a complex shape that I'm fine with messing some of it up. This nail should be darker. And there should be a bit of a smoother transition there. Slightly darker too. Yeah. So the fingers are fine. I'm fine with them, even though they're not necessarily perfect. It's just so much complexity in rendering these shapes that you really have to do your best and kind of let fate decide what's gonna happen. And it would be interesting to reattempt this again a third time. I do see a bit of a shadow there, so let's get that in. And very smooth transition there. There's a bit of a shadow, aka crease here, fold of the skin coming through there. Let's get that in. The shadow here, this is now just quick corrections. Shadow here, oopsie doops, should be darker. I think just a little bit darker. That's all I'm gonna do, again, so that I don't lose the flow from the previous wash, which I really like. We can add that wire thing running through the center of the candle, fairly light, like this. We'll give it a bit of a better connection. And I'm actually pretty happy with it. Wondering what else I should do. Like, this finger is really light. I don't know why. Maybe I should just lift back some of it. I don't know. Well, let's try it out. Hopefully this video won't be too long for most people, because it is a challenging process, so I am kind of working my way around it. But here we go, a little lighter. There's a bit of a highlight here that will help us indicate the shape of the finger and how the knuckle is actually aimed more towards the light, so it looks lighter. So you can go back with this kind of a brush or any type of brush and try lifting back some details if you feel like you lost them. Like, for example, here right above the nail, I'm gonna leave it as it is. I'm gonna make this a little lighter, like that. Very small differences. I'm fine with that. Do I want to further darken anything? No, I think that's good. It's, again, not perfect, but it is close, and it does show the light coming from the shadow. These scenes, what you really want to understand, I'm just going to make a better separation between the fingers. These scenes that have the chiaroscuro feeling, mostly shadow and a bit of highlight, they'll always be challenging in watercolor, because you work a process that is, in my opinion, not ideal. And don't let that stop you in any way, shape, or form. But understand that when you work from light to dark, these scenes are going to be a little more challenging, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? And with more skill, I'm sure I could get a lot of these, and I have seen a lot of artists that get all of these so much better. But I'm not gonna let the fact that maybe a subject isn't as ideal for watercolor, again, don't believe me. Just try it out. Maybe you'll find that these are even easier for you. But I'm not gonna let that fact stop me, no matter how much it gets reinforced. I'm gonna try out these extreme, if you want to call it extreme subjects, and hopefully they will work out. So we're actually not done. There is one final risk I'd like to take, and it has to do with the flame itself and the radiated light. I cannot stop seeing that my rendering of the shape isn't accurate enough, and I'm gonna have to try and add upon it to fix it. So this dark area goes further in, and then this area of the radiated light should be darker. Now the challenge is gonna be in blending that, and hopefully I won't mess that up. Let me see here. Like that. And we'll try and darken it further right now, okay, because it's still wet, while preserving that kind of a... Let me dry this section. I don't want it to reawaken my paint from earlier, but I just couldn't help it. And maybe I'll stop soon, but just felt like it wasn't clear enough. But now it actually looks a lot better to me. And as always, there's got to be something else. Just this hand. I've been staring at it for a while. This should be a little darker, just to put the lit part in better context. So something like this. And yeah, now I'm going to sign this and we'll remove the tape. So we're going to remove the tape, and I wanted to put the previous attempt here for comparison's sake. I kind of lost the plot here with the fingers especially. I do think the hands being slightly darker here is a better look than this. So maybe I should go over them, but that's fine. I'm gonna let this one go now. Maybe try and tackle it a different time. There's a limit to how perfectionist or how judgmental of your own work you can be, and I've been plenty today, so I'm gonna let that one go. Almost done here, and hopefully that'll provide a bit of a better frame for the painting and will make it look a little better. So here it is, the final result. I really like it. From afar, the hands even make more sense, as always. If you really want to see the impressionistic work better, just take a few steps back or paint larger, which is something I plan on doing a little more of soon. But yeah, painting larger is a better solution because every mistake is more diluted when you paint larger, because you have more room on which it spreads out. But when you paint small, everything has to really be perfectly rendered in a way. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed this one. Let's wrap it up face to face. So this is it for this one. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this one and seeing the comparison with the earlier version. This is not necessarily an easy scene, and again, with watercolor, any scene that is very dominated by dark will tend to, at least for me personally, to throw me off a bit. It's something you just work on until you improve. It's something I have not practiced enough, doing enough of. In any case, so I have a long way to go. But I hope seeing that and hearing that real-time narrated process helps with that. I'm going to try and do more of those real-time narrated videos. I think it's just better. It's just better to really be exposed to my thoughts as I do this. You get something that's a little more vanilla, a little more, I think, farther from the process by doing it. Just like painting plein air brings you closer to the reference, hearing my thoughts real time brings you closer to the process. But in any case, I want to thank you so much. If you want to learn how to paint like me, how to let go, enjoy the painting process, be sure to check out the frustration-free watercolor course. Link is always in the description box below, and I fixed some problems on the website. Now it should work better. I do hope to see you there, and thank you so much just for watching and for liking, leaving comments. It really helps me know what you want to see more of, and I really do appreciate it. We'll see you again in another video real soon.